In 2006, Lisa Allen walked into a research lab, overweight, unemployed, and struggling with her health. A year later, she had lost 60 pounds, quit smoking, and found herself thriving in a new career. What's the catch, you ask? It wasn't some secret diet or miracle pill. It wasn't even a radical change to her life. It was one habit, just one. That's right. One simple shift and everything else followed. Now, I know what you're thinking. One habit? Really? But before you roll your eyes, let's dive into the fascinating world of habits. Because, whether you know it or not, they are quietly shaping every single aspect of your life. The good news is, with the right understanding, you can tap into this power to transform your own life, just like Lisa did. Let me ask you something. How much of your daily routine is automatic? When you wake up in the morning, are you conscious of the habits you've already started? Maybe it's grabbing your phone, checking your emails, or reaching for that cup of coffee. Your brain is basically running on autopilot, and that's where habits come in. Habits are like the software running in the background of your mind, guiding everything from your behaviors to your thoughts to your decisions, often without you even realizing it. Here's where it gets interesting. Our habits don't just shape our daily routines. They shape who we are. They define the way we approach challenges, interact with others, and even how we see ourselves. The tricky part is, without realizing it, our habits can either be working for us or against us. And if we're not aware of that, we can easily get stuck in patterns that prevent us from reaching our full potential. Imagine if you could tap into the science of habit formation and harness it for your own growth. Would you be able to turn your day around? Would you achieve that big goal you've been dreaming of? Absolutely. But you need to understand how it all works. The truth is, understanding the power of habits isn't just about improving your morning routine or finally kicking that bad habit you've been struggling with. It's about unlocking a secret weapon, one that can drive everything from your career success to your personal happiness. And that's just the beginning. Over the next few chapters, you're going to uncover how small changes in your habits can lead to massive transformations. You'll learn why your brain loves habits. It's not just because it's lazy. Why habits aren't as hard to change as we think, and how you can start building habits that serve your biggest dreams. Trust me, this journey is about to get fascinating. So, hang on tight because you're about to discover why the habits you create today will determine your tomorrow. Ready to change your life? Let's dive in. Chapter 1. The anatomy of habits. The habit loop. Have you ever found yourself standing in front of the fridge, mindlessly reaching for a snack without even thinking about it? Or maybe you've gone for a run in the morning without actively deciding to do so, simply because it's part of your routine. What if I told you this is all because of a powerful pattern in your brain called the habit loop? And what's even more fascinating, this loop can either work for you or against you depending on how you shape it. The habit loop consists of three simple components: cue, routine, and reward. It's the structure your brain uses to automate behaviors, which frees up mental energy for other tasks. Let's break it down and see how each piece works. The first part of the loop is the cue. This is the trigger, the event that starts the whole cycle. It could be something as simple as the sound of your alarm clock, the sight of your running shoes, or even the feeling of stress. Cues can come from both external sources like the environment or internal cues, such as a craving or emotion. The cue is essentially a signal to your brain, hey, it's time to do something. Next, there's the routine, which is the behavior you perform in response to the cue. This can be anything from brushing your teeth to grabbing a cup of coffee, to exercising. Routines are the habits themselves, the automatic actions you take without consciously thinking about them. These routines can be simple or complex depending on the habit. Over time, as a routine is repeated, it becomes more ingrained in your brain, making it easier and faster to perform. Finally, we have the reward, the payoff you get for completing the routine. The reward is the part that reinforces the behavior, signaling to your brain that this loop is worth repeating. It could be something physical, like the satisfaction of a fresh breath after brushing your teeth, or something emotional, like the boost of confidence from completing your morning workout. This positive feeling is what strengthens the habit and makes you want to repeat the loop again and again. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine it's morning, and the cue is the sound of your alarm ringing. In response, you get out of bed and brush your teeth, your routine. The reward comes when you feel that fresh, clean sensation in your mouth. This loop is repeated every day, and over time, your brain associates the alarm ringing with brushing your teeth, making it almost automatic. The more often this loop is repeated, the stronger and more ingrained it becomes in your brain. But here's the kicker. The habit loop doesn't just apply to healthy routines like brushing your teeth. It can also apply to less desirable habits, like checking your phone as soon as you wake up, or reaching for unhealthy snacks when you're stressed. The power of the habit loop lies in its ability to automate behavior, for better or for worse. Take the example of Febreze, the household product we all know and love. Febreze's success wasn't just about its fresh scent. It was about understanding the power of habit loops. When Procter & Gamble launched Febreze, they noticed something interesting. People didn't immediately reach for Febreze after cleaning. Why? Because the habit loop wasn't in place. They had a cue, cleaning the house, but there was no routine afterward. The key moment came when they realized that people didn't feel the need to spray Febreze unless it was part of their established cleaning ritual. So they marketed Febreze as a finishing touch to the cleaning process, a reward for completing the task. This simple shift helped turn Febreze into a household name because it tapped into the existing habit loop of cleaning and introduced a reward that people craved. A fresh, pleasant scent. Another story that illustrates the power of habit loops comes from Starbucks. The company's success is not just based on serving good coffee, but on training its employees to create positive customer experiences by using habit loops. For example, the routine of making a latte at Starbucks is meticulously standardized, from the way the barista greets customers to how the coffee is made, ensuring a consistent experience every time. The reward? A satisfied customer who returns again and again. Starbucks has perfected the habit loop both for its employees and for its customers, creating an environment where positive behaviors are not only expected but are hardwired into the culture. So, what's happening inside your brain when these loops form? Well, the secret lies in a part of your brain called the basal ganglia. This is the area responsible for automating behaviors, and it plays a key role in habit formation. Think of the basal ganglia as your brain's habit-making factory. When you repeat a behavior, your basal ganglia essentially stores it and makes it easier to perform in the future, all without requiring much thought. It's the reason why, once you've learned to ride a bike, you don't need to consciously think about how to balance anymore. It's automatic, driven by those deep neural connections. Imagine you're learning to play the guitar. At first, every note and chord feels awkward and clumsy. But over time, as you practice, the movements become smoother, almost instinctive. That's your basal ganglia at work, transforming your conscious effort into an automatic skill. This process is the same whether you're learning a new skill, developing a good habit, or reinforcing a bad one. But here's where things get tricky. Not all habits are created equal. Some are easy to build and even harder to break. Others feel like they're carved into your brain, and you're stuck in a never-ending loop. So how do you change a habit? Well, the first step is understanding your own habit loops. What are the cues, routines, and rewards that shape your daily life? Are there any loops you'd like to replace or improve? Let me ask you this. When you're feeling stressed, what's your go-to routine? Maybe you dive into social media or snack on junk food or procrastinate. Whatever it is, there's a habit loop at play. The cue is stress, the routine is your go-to coping mechanism, and the reward is the temporary relief or escape you feel afterward. If you want to change this habit, the key is to recognize the cue and consciously replace the routine with something healthier, while still delivering that same reward. For example, you could replace stress-induced social media scrolling with a short walk or some deep breathing exercises. The goal is not to eliminate the cue or the reward, but to switch up the routine in a way that serves your better interests. The fascinating part about habit loops is that once you understand how they work, you can begin to take control of your behaviors. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. By tweaking the components of the habit loop, you can create the kind of habits that propel you toward your goals, rather than holding you back. The more you practice, the more automatic these new habits will become. As you start reflecting on your own habits, here's a question to consider. What's one habit you could change today that would make the biggest impact on your life? It doesn't have to be a massive change. Small shifts in your habit loop can lead to big results. Maybe it's replacing your morning scroll through Instagram with a quick workout. Maybe it's replacing your nightly snack with a calming bedtime routine. Whatever it is, understanding the habit loop is the first step in taking control of your habits and, ultimately, your life. As we move forward, think about how you can start to adjust your own habit loops. What's the cue, what's the routine, and most importantly, what's the reward? Get clear on these pieces, and you'll be well on your way to mastering the power of habit. So, let's dive deeper into the next chapters, where we'll explore how to identify the keystone habits that can completely transform your life. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Chapter 2. Keystone Habits. Small changes, big impacts. You've probably heard the saying, small things make a big difference. But what if I told you that some small things have the power to completely transform your entire life? These are what we call keystone habits. They're the small, simple behaviors that, when changed or improved, create a ripple effect that touches nearly every part of your life. Imagine setting one domino in motion and watching it knock down a whole chain of others. That's the power of keystone habits. Let's start by defining exactly what a keystone habit is. Simply put, a keystone habit is one that has a disproportionate influence on other areas of your life. When you change or cultivate a keystone habit, it doesn't just affect that one action. It sets off a cascade of other positive changes. For example, a habit like exercising regularly might not only improve your physical health, but also your sleep, your energy levels, your self-esteem, and even your relationships. One of the simplest examples of a keystone habit is eating dinner as a family. It may seem like a small, daily activity, but research has shown that families who eat together regularly are more likely to have healthier diets, stronger communication, and closer relationships. Why? Because that one habit, sitting down together for a meal, creates an environment where other positive habits naturally emerge, like meal planning, cooking at home, and even spending quality time with each other. A seemingly small change, yet it influences countless other areas. Another classic example is journaling. People who develop the habit of journaling often experience a significant improvement in mental clarity and self-reflection. But the benefits don't stop there. They might also experience greater productivity, more mindfulness, and even a stronger sense of gratitude. By simply carving out a few minutes a day to write, you set a foundation that leads to a series of positive changes that extend far beyond the journal itself. And then there's exercise. This is perhaps one of the most powerful keystone habits because it touches almost every aspect of your life. At first, you might think that exercise is just about physical fitness, but the benefits go much deeper. Regular exercise can lead to better sleep, increased energy, improved mood, and even stronger mental focus. It sets off a chain reaction that influences other habits. People who exercise regularly tend to eat healthier, get more done, and develop better time management skills. Once exercise becomes a habit, it opens the door to a more productive, healthier, and more positive life. Take a moment to think about it. What small habit could create a ripple effect for you? It's often these tiny changes that have the biggest long-term impact, and the key is recognizing them when they appear. To better understand the power of keystone habits, let's look at a real-world example: Alcoa's transformation. Alcoa, the giant aluminum company, was facing severe challenges in the late 1980s. Despite being one of the largest companies in the world, it was struggling with low profits and low employee morale. Enter Paul O'Neill, who became CEO in 1987. Rather than diving straight into financial strategies or cutting costs, O'Neill decided to focus on one specific habit: worker safety. It might seem like an odd place to start when you're running a multi-billion-dollar company, but O'Neill understood something critical. If he could change the safety habits of the company, he could ignite a cultural transformation. By focusing on safety, he set in motion a chain of positive changes. First, workers felt more valued and cared for, which improved morale. Second, safety improvements led to more efficient processes and fewer costly accidents. Third, the company began to adopt better management practices as employees saw that leadership was focused on their well-being. And here's the kicker. In just a few years, Alcoa's profits soared. By focusing on one keystone habit, safety, O'Neill had completely transformed the culture and performance of the company. Let's take a closer look at how exercise can function as a keystone habit in your own life. Maybe you're not a fitness enthusiast yet, but imagine committing to just 20 minutes of exercise a few times a week. Initially, the goal might seem small, just a short walk, a quick jog, or a few minutes of stretching. But this habit starts a ripple effect. As you begin to exercise, you'll likely notice an increase in your energy levels. You'll feel more awake, more focused, and more productive. And this isn't just physical. When you feel good about yourself, you're more likely to make healthier choices in other areas of your life. Maybe you start choosing healthier food options because you want to fuel your body right. Maybe you start sleeping better because regular exercise promotes deeper, more restful sleep. Maybe you even feel more motivated to tackle the big projects at work because your mind is clearer. This is the power of keystone habits. They act as catalysts for change. The beautiful thing about keystone habits is that once they're in place, they require less effort to maintain over time. It's the initial habit change that requires the most work. But once that habit is built, the benefits begin to unfold effortlessly. It's not just about physical habits either. Mental and emotional habits, like practicing gratitude or setting daily intentions, are also keystone habits that can positively impact your overall well-being. When you make a habit of starting your day with a few minutes of reflection or mindfulness, you'll notice that you approach the day with more clarity and intention. Over time, this will improve your decision-making, your relationships, and your mental health. But here's the tricky part: finding your own keystone habits. The first step is to think about your life as a collection of systems, not just isolated actions. What's the one habit you could develop that would have the greatest impact on your overall well-being? It might not be something huge. It could be as simple as making your bed every morning or taking a 5-minute walk during lunch. The key is consistency. Start by identifying your core values. What's most important to you in life? Health? Relationships? Productivity? Once you've identified those areas, think about the smallest possible habit you can adopt in each of those categories that would create a domino effect. If your goal is to improve your health, maybe starting with a keystone habit like drinking more water will lead to improved energy and better food choices. If you want to improve your productivity, perhaps the habit of planning your day the night before could spark a more organized, focused approach to your work. Another great way to identify keystone habits is to ask yourself, what's one small change I can make today that will improve the way I feel tomorrow? It's not about perfection, and it's certainly not about doing it all at once. Start small and allow the positive effects to snowball over time. The beauty of keystone habits is that once you build one, it opens the door to others. And over time, you'll begin to notice your life improving in ways you didn't even anticipate. Your energy levels will increase, your mental clarity will sharpen, and you'll start seeing results in areas you never expected. Keystone habits are not a quick fix. They're a long-term strategy. But if you commit to making small, consistent changes, you'll be amazed at how quickly these habits begin to compound, leading you to the kind of life you've always wanted. So, as you reflect on the changes you'd like to make in your life, consider focusing on a keystone habit. What's the one habit that could spark positive change across multiple areas? By identifying and embracing your own keystone habits, you're taking the first step toward creating lasting transformation in your life. Let's dive deeper into the next chapter, where we'll explore the science of willpower and how it plays a critical role in habit formation. Trust me, this is where things start to get even more fascinating. Chapter 3. The role of willpower in habit formation. Have you ever tried to stick to a new habit? Maybe it's a fitness routine, a diet, or even just cutting down on screen time, only to find yourself giving in to temptation a few days later? You swear you'll do better tomorrow, but tomorrow comes, and the same cycle repeats. What's the problem? If you've been struggling to maintain consistency, the issue might not be that you lack motivation or discipline. It could be that you're not fully understanding the role of willpower in habit formation. Willpower is often thought of as an almost mythical force, something that people either have or don't have. But the truth is, willpower is more like a muscle. It can be strengthened over time, but it's also finite. Think of it this way. Imagine you're at the gym lifting weights. The first set is easy, but as you keep lifting, your muscles start to tire. Eventually, you hit a point where your strength is depleted, and you can't continue without rest. Willpower works in a similar way. You start the day with a full tank of willpower, but every decision you make that requires self-control depletes that energy. By the end of the day, it might be harder to resist temptation or stick to your habits, simply because your willpower is drained. This is why some days you feel like you're on top of the world, crushing your goals, while other days you feel like you're fighting an uphill battle. Your willpower fluctuates, and that fluctuation can make or break your ability to form habits. Let's dive deeper into how willpower works, and how you can begin to build and sustain it. The science behind willpower is fascinating. Researchers have discovered that willpower operates much like a muscle in that it can be fatigued, but also trained to become stronger over time. The more you exercise your willpower, the better you become at using it. In a classic study by psychologist Roy Baumeister, participants were asked to avoid eating chocolate chip cookies and instead eat radishes. The study found that those who resisted the cookies showed less self-control on a subsequent task, indicating that their willpower had been drained. On the other hand, those who had not used their willpower on the radishes performed better on the second task. The key takeaway? Willpower is finite, and using it on one task can deplete your reserves for other tasks. However, just like a muscle, willpower can be strengthened. The more you exercise it in small, manageable ways, the more endurance it builds. This is where habits come into play. By establishing small, positive habits, you're essentially training your willpower to become more resilient. And the good news is that it doesn't require massive feats of strength to do this. Small victories matter. Take the example of Starbucks. The company recognized the importance of willpower in its employees, especially when it came to dealing with demanding customers. They implemented a specific training method for baristas that wasn't just about technical skills. It was about managing emotions, practicing patience, and exercising willpower in the face of frustration. They instilled the habit of pausing, taking a deep breath, and choosing to stay calm, even when faced with a rude customer. Over time, baristas internalized this habit, making it automatic to handle stress without letting it derail their professionalism. In other words, Starbucks didn't just train employees to make coffee. They trained them to strengthen their willpower in the face of challenging situations. By doing so, they created a work environment where employees felt empowered to act with calm and poise, which positively impacted both their job satisfaction and the company's overall customer service. Let's shift gears and look at something more personal. Procrastination is something nearly everyone struggles with at some point, and it's often a result of depleted willpower. The decision to procrastinate is essentially your brain saying, "I'd rather feel good right now, even if it means dealing with the consequences later." But here's the twist. The very act of procrastinating drains your willpower, leaving you with less energy to make better choices later on. It becomes a vicious cycle. So how do you break it? One powerful strategy is the 5-minute rule. The idea is simple. Whenever you feel the urge to procrastinate, commit to doing the task for just 5 minutes. That's it. You're not trying to finish the entire project. Just 5 minutes. More often than not, once you get started, you'll find yourself continuing long after the 5 minutes are up. The key is that getting started is often the hardest part, and once you break that mental barrier, your willpower gains momentum. In fact, the 5-minute rule is just one way to train your willpower. Let's explore a few more actionable strategies that will help you build and sustain willpower over time. First and foremost, set clear, achievable goals. When your goals are specific and concrete, it's easier to direct your willpower toward them. Vague goals like, "I want to exercise more," are less motivating than specific ones like, "I will walk 30 minutes every morning before work." The more specific your goal, the more focused your willpower becomes. Second, practice self-discipline by making small commitments and sticking to them. Could be as simple as committing to waking up 10 minutes earlier each day or making your bed in the morning. These small victories build your willpower and show you that you can follow through, which in turn strengthens your resolve when it comes to larger challenges. Another strategy is to manage your energy levels throughout the day. Willpower is closely tied to your mental and physical energy, and both of these resources can be depleted by stress, lack of sleep, or poor nutrition. If you're constantly running on empty, it becomes much harder to muster the willpower to stick to your habits. Make sure you're getting enough rest, eating well, and taking breaks to recharge throughout the day. The more energy you have, the more willpower you'll have to tackle your goals. It's also important to identify and avoid willpower drains. These are the situations, triggers, or environments that deplete your willpower. For instance, if you've set a goal to stop snacking late at night, but you have a pantry full of junk food within arm's reach, it's much harder to exercise self-control. Instead, remove temptation from your environment, or make the process of giving into it more difficult. If your goal is to exercise more, lay out your workout clothes the night before to make it easier to get started in the morning. Finally, remember to celebrate small wins. Each time you successfully exercise willpower, whether it's sticking to your workout routine, resisting a temptation, or completing a task on time, celebrate it. Acknowledge your success no matter how small. This reinforces the positive behavior and gives you the motivation to keep going. Building willpower is not about waiting for the perfect moment or waiting until you feel motivated. It's about training your brain to make better decisions, even when you're tired or tempted. Think of it like building muscle. The more consistently you train, the stronger your willpower becomes. The truth is, willpower is a skill, not an innate trait. It's something we all can develop over time, with patience and practice. By recognizing how willpower works, and by using strategies to build and sustain it, you'll find that sticking to your habits becomes much easier. As you continue your journey of habit formation, keep this in mind. Willpower is your ally, but it's not infinite. Treat it like a muscle and take care to build it gradually. Small actions lead to big results, and with the right strategies, you'll be able to conquer even the most stubborn habits. So, as we move forward into the next chapter, let's explore how to master the art of habit change and create lasting transformation. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. ####Chapter 4. Habits in Organizations. Cultivating collective behavior. When we think about habits, it's easy to imagine individuals making personal changes, waking up early, exercising, or eating healthier. But habits don't just shape individual lives. They have the power to shape entire organizations. Just as a single person's routine can create a ripple effect in their personal life, collective habits within a company can influence its culture, performance, and overall success. The habits of employees, leaders, and entire teams can either propel an organization forward or hold it back. Understanding how habits work on a larger scale is crucial for any organization aiming to foster a productive and positive environment. At the heart of organizational habits is the idea of shared behavior. When people within an organization form common habits, whether they're related to how meetings are run, how feedback is given, or how teams collaborate, these behaviors become ingrained in the culture. Over time, these shared habits form the foundation of an organization's identity. The power of collective habits lies in their ability to align the actions of individuals with the organization's broader goals and values. When everyone operates with similar habits and routines, the organization as a whole becomes more efficient, cohesive, and capable of achieving its objectives. One compelling example of how shared habits can transform an organization comes from the world of sports. In the early 2000s, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a professional football team, were struggling to achieve consistent success. The team had the talent, but they lacked a winning culture. Enter head coach John Gruden, who understood that success wasn't just about finding the right players. It was about creating the right environment. Gruden knew that habits played a pivotal role in shaping the team's culture and performance, so he set about instilling a series of shared habits that would help the Buccaneers build trust, discipline, and a sense of unity. One of the most important habits Gruden implemented was the idea of accountability. Every player was responsible not only for their own performance but for the success of the team as a whole. To reinforce this habit, Gruden made sure that team members practiced consistently, emphasized teamwork, and held each other to high standards both on and off the field. This focus on shared accountability paid off in a big way. By the end of the 2002 season, the Buccaneers won their first Super Bowl. It was a powerful example of how the right collective habits, aligned with a strong team culture, could lead to transformative success. Similarly, in the business world, Companies that focus on shared habits often see profound results. One such example is Target, the retail giant. Target's success in marketing can largely be attributed to its data-driven habits. Rather than relying on intuition or assumptions, Target cultivated a culture where employees routinely analyzed consumer behavior and customer data to make decisions. This habit of data-driven decision-making became embedded in the company's culture, influencing everything from product placement to advertising strategies. By fostering this habit, Target not only optimized its marketing efforts but also created a competitive advantage in the marketplace. The importance of shared habits in organizations extends beyond individual actions. It affects how teams communicate, how leaders lead, and how the organization adapts to challenges. For instance, when employees are accustomed to a culture of collaboration, they are more likely to share ideas, solve problems together, and drive innovation. Similarly, when leaders demonstrate positive habits, such as listening actively, setting clear goals, and providing consistent feedback, employees are more likely to adopt those habits themselves, reinforcing the desired culture across the organization. For leaders, the key to harnessing the power of habits within an organization is to be intentional about the habits they cultivate. Just as we've seen with individual habits, it's not enough to simply tell people what to do. Habits are formed through consistent actions and reinforcement. Leaders must not only model the behaviors they want to see in others, but also create an environment where those habits can thrive. This requires both strategic thinking and a commitment to long-term cultural change. To instill habits that align with the organization's vision and goals, leaders can start by identifying the key behaviors that support those objectives. If a company's goal is to increase innovation, for example, the leader might focus on habits related to creativity and risk-taking. This could involve encouraging brainstorming sessions, rewarding unconventional thinking, and providing opportunities for employees to experiment without fear of failure. If the goal is to improve customer service, the leader might instill habits of active listening, empathy, and responsiveness. These habits can be reinforced through training, regular feedback, and public recognition of employees who exemplify these behaviors. Leaders also need to create structures and systems that support habit formation. This could mean setting up accountability mechanisms, such as regular check-ins or performance reviews, to ensure that the desired behaviors are being practiced consistently. It might also involve integrating the desired habits into the organization's everyday processes. For instance, if a company values transparency, leaders could foster that habit by regularly sharing updates on company performance, goals, and challenges. By embedding these behaviors into the fabric of the organization, leaders can ensure that they become second nature to employees. Another critical aspect of building organizational habits is reinforcement. Habits are formed through repetition, so it's essential that leaders consistently reinforce the desired behaviors through recognition, rewards, and feedback. Positive reinforcement can come in many forms: verbal praise, monetary rewards, opportunities for career advancement, or public acknowledgement of achievements. The more often an employee experiences the benefits of engaging in the desired habit, the more likely they are to continue practicing it. Let's turn now to Zappos, an online retail company that has long been known for its exceptional customer service. One of the key habits Zappos instills in its employees is going above and beyond to delight customers. This habit is ingrained in their culture, and it's something that every employee, regardless of their role, practices every day. Zappos encourages employees to make personal connections with customers, surprise them with unexpected gestures, and take ownership of resolving any issues that arise. This habit of delivering exceptional service has become synonymous with the brand, and it has helped Zappos build a loyal customer base and a positive reputation in the marketplace. In addition to reinforcing positive habits, leaders must also be aware of and address negative habits that may be undermining the organization's culture. For example, if a company's culture fosters a habit of blaming others for mistakes rather than taking responsibility, this can create a toxic environment where trust and collaboration are eroded. Leaders need to be proactive in identifying these harmful habits and taking steps to replace them with more constructive behaviors. This could involve training programs, changing organizational structures, or implementing new policies that encourage accountability and teamwork. The power of habits in organizations cannot be overstated. Whether they're related to communication, decision-making, collaboration, or customer service, shared habits shape the culture and ultimately determine the success or failure of an organization. The good news is that habits can be cultivated and transformed. By understanding the role of habits in shaping behavior, leaders can take intentional steps to create an environment where the right habits flourish, driving both individual and organizational success. So, how can you start implementing these principles in your own organization? Begin by focusing on the behaviors that matter most to your company's vision. Look for opportunities to align individual habits with organizational goals, and take steps to reinforce those behaviors through feedback, training, and recognition. With time and consistency, you'll see your organization's culture shift, and the results will speak for themselves. As we move into the next chapter, we'll explore how to break bad habits and replace them with healthier alternatives. This is where the rubber meets the road, and where we'll dive into the practical steps for creating lasting habit change in both our personal and professional lives. Trust me, this next chapter is one you won't want to miss. #### Chapter 5. Changing Habits. The golden rule of habit change. When it comes to changing habits, there's one rule that stands above all others. You can't just eliminate a bad habit. If you try to simply remove a behavior without replacing it with something else, you're setting yourself up for failure. That's because habits are deeply ingrained in our brains. They're not just actions we perform, they're mental shortcuts that our brain uses to conserve energy. So, when we try to stop a habit, we don't just lose an action, we also lose that mental shortcut. And that gap, that feeling of emptiness, can quickly pull us back into the old habit. The key, then, is not to eliminate but to replace the habit. The golden rule of habit change is simple: you can't erase a habit, you can only replace it ****. This means that in order to break free from a negative pattern, you need to substitute the old routine with a new one while keeping the cue and the reward intact. To understand this better, let's break it down into its three core components: the habit loop, cue, routine, and reward. The cue is the trigger that starts the habit, the routine is the behavior you perform in response, and the reward is the positive feeling or outcome that reinforces the behavior. When you try to change a habit, what you're doing is swapping out the routine while keeping the cue and reward the same. The brain craves the reward, but it's looking for a new, healthier way to satisfy that craving. Let's consider an example: a person trying to quit smoking. The cue for smoking might be stress or social situations, the routine is lighting up a cigarette, and the reward is the temporary sense of relaxation and relief. To break this habit, the person can't simply stop smoking. Doing so would leave a void that could lead to relapse. Instead, they need to replace the act of smoking with a different routine that provides a similar reward. For example, they might replace smoking with a quick walk, deep breathing exercises, or even chewing gum. The cue remains the same: stress or social situations, and the reward is still that feeling of relief, but now the routine has changed to something healthier. This principle of habit substitution is at the heart of many successful habit-breaking programs, and one of the most well-known examples is Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. AA doesn't tell people to simply stop drinking. Instead, it teaches participants to replace drinking with a new, positive behavior: joining support groups, attending meetings, and engaging in a network of sober individuals. The cue in this case might be stress, anxiety, or the urge to socialize, and the reward is the temporary feeling of relief or belonging that alcohol once provided. By substituting the routine, alcohol, with sober activities like group support, the individual is able to satisfy the same underlying craving but in a much healthier way. Over time, this new routine becomes the new habit, and the old destructive behavior fades into the background. This idea of replacing routines is not limited to extreme cases like addiction. It's applicable to any habit you want to change. Take, for example, someone who wants to stop scrolling endlessly through social media. The cue might be boredom or the desire to avoid a task. The routine is opening an app and scrolling for hours, and the reward is the fleeting pleasure of distraction or novelty. To replace this habit, they would need to find a new routine that delivers a similar reward. Perhaps they replace social media time with reading a book or taking a quick walk. The cue is still boredom or avoidance, and the reward is still the feeling of being entertained or distracted, but the new routine is healthier and more productive. The key to replacing habits successfully is understanding that the cue and reward remain unchanged. The challenge lies in identifying what the reward is and finding a healthier, more productive way to satisfy it. This is often the trickiest part of habit change. People might try to change their habits without fully understanding what they're really seeking from the behavior. The reward isn't always obvious, but once you identify it, you can replace the routine with something that satisfies that craving in a better way. Think about someone who's trying to stop eating junk food. The cue might be feeling tired or stressed after a long day at work. The routine is grabbing a bag of chips or a candy bar, and the reward is the immediate comfort or boost of energy. To break this cycle, you need to find a routine that satisfies that same craving for comfort and energy but in a healthier way. Maybe it's a handful of almonds or a piece of fruit, which still provides the energy and satisfaction but without the excess sugar and empty calories. Over time, this new habit becomes ingrained, and the person will no longer feel the urge to reach for junk food at the end of the day. Breaking a bad habit is a step-by-step process that requires both awareness and intention. Simply deciding to quit isn't enough. You need to consciously identify the cues and rewards that drive your behavior, and then systematically replace the routine with a healthier alternative. But that's not all. There are common obstacles that arise during this process, and knowing how to navigate them can make all the difference. One of the biggest obstacles is resistance to change. People often resist changing habits because they're comfortable with their routines, even if those routines are harmful. Change feels uncertain and uncomfortable, which can create feelings of anxiety or self-doubt. To overcome this resistance, it's important to set small, manageable goals that make the change feel less overwhelming. For instance, instead of aiming to quit smoking cold turkey, someone might start by cutting back gradually, smoking one less cigarette a day until they're down to 0. Similarly, someone trying to cut down on social media might start by limiting their use to 30 minutes a day and gradually decreasing it further. Another common obstacle is lack of motivation. It's easy to get excited about making a change at first, but maintaining motivation over time can be challenging. To stay on track, it's helpful to remind yourself of the reward you're working towards, whether it's improved health, better relationships, or personal growth. Tracking progress and celebrating small wins along the way can also boost motivation and reinforce the new routine. Accountability is another powerful tool in habit change. Having someone to support you, whether it's a friend, family member, or coach, can make it easier to stay committed. When you know someone is cheering you on, or when you check in regularly with a partner or group, you're more likely to stick with your plan. Let's look at a few real-world examples of habit changes that have worked. Take Tom, for instance, a man who was addicted to smoking for over 20 years. He tried to quit countless times, but the cravings were always too strong. After reading about habit loops and the golden rule of habit change, Tom realized that his habit wasn't just about smoking, it was about the feeling of relief he got when he was stressed. By identifying the underlying reward, he was able to replace the cigarette with a healthier habit: deep breathing exercises. Now, instead of lighting up when he was stressed, Tom took 5 deep breaths. At first, it felt awkward, but soon it became a habit that worked even better than smoking for calming him down. Another inspiring story comes from Sarah, a woman who was addicted to social media. She found herself mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for hours every day. The cue was boredom or the urge to procrastinate, and the reward was the pleasure of seeing new content and escaping her daily responsibilities. By recognizing this pattern, Sarah started replacing social media time with reading. She chose books that fascinated her and made it a goal to read for 30 minutes every evening. Over time, she found that the reading gave her the same sense of escape and relaxation, without the anxiety or guilt that came from mindless scrolling. Ultimately, changing a habit is about finding a replacement that works for you. A new routine that provides the same reward as the old habit but in a healthier, more productive way. And while this process takes time and effort, the payoff is worth it. When you successfully replace a bad habit with a positive one, you're not just changing your behavior, you're changing the way your brain operates, reinforcing a new pattern that will last. In the next chapter, we'll delve into the idea of creating habit stacking, where you can leverage existing habits to build new ones. This technique can be a game changer, especially when you need to make multiple changes at once. Stay tuned for a powerful strategy that will help you accelerate your habit transformation and make it stick for good. Chapter 6. The social impact of habits. Movements and change. When we think of habits, we often focus on personal routines, those daily actions that shape our lives and define who we are. However, habits don't exist in isolation. They can spread from one person to another, influencing communities, organizations, and entire societies. Just as a habit loop is formed by an individual's cue, routine, and reward, collective habits, those shared by a group, can become powerful forces that shape the direction of social movements and cultural shifts. The power of habits extends beyond personal transformation. It can be the driving force behind social change on a global scale. Take, for example, the civil rights movement in the United States during the 1950s and 1960s. One of the key drivers of this movement wasn't just a single event or a single leader, but the collective habits of millions of individuals. These were the habits of resistance, solidarity, and daily acts of defiance against injustice. At the heart of the movement was the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, which would go on to become one of the most significant acts of collective habit in history. The boycott began when Rosa Parks, a black woman, was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated bus. This act of defiance sparked a collective response from the black community in Montgomery, Alabama, who, for over a year, organized and sustained a boycott of the city's buses. The success of this boycott wasn't just a result of individual acts of resistance, it was the outcome of habitual collective action. For over a year, people made a habit out of finding alternative forms of transportation, organizing carpools, and walking for miles instead of riding the bus. This habit of solidarity, repeated every day, became a powerful tool for challenging the status quo and demanding justice. What's remarkable about the Montgomery bus boycott is that it wasn't just about refusing to ride the bus. It was about replacing a routine that had existed for decades, and instead, creating a new habit that, over time, disrupted an entire system. The community's willingness to support the boycott, to make the habit of walking and carpooling part of their daily lives, transformed an individual act of resistance into a massive, sustained campaign. The success of the boycott had a ripple effect across the country, helping to spark other movements for civil rights, and it remains a powerful example of how shared habits can fuel social change. While social movements like the civil rights movement harness the power of collective habits to challenge existing systems, other movements have used the same principle to create positive change. One such movement is the growing emphasis on fitness and wellness in modern society. Fitness trends like running and yoga have become more than just individual pursuits. They have evolved into social habits that promote healthier lifestyles on a global scale. Consider the explosion of the running trend in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. What began as a few individuals lacing up their sneakers and hitting the pavement soon grew into a global movement, driven by the collective habits of people around the world. Marathons, 5K races, and running clubs became common ways for people to not only improve their health but also to connect with others. In this case, the habit loop involved the cue, wanting to get fit, the routine, going for a run, and the reward, feeling accomplished and healthy. As more and more people adopted running into their daily routines, they created a social habit, a collective action, that spread across cultures, transcending borders and uniting people under a common goal. Similarly, yoga has undergone a dramatic transformation over the past few decades, moving from a spiritual and meditative practice rooted in Eastern traditions to a mainstream, socially accepted habit for people of all ages and backgrounds. The routine of yoga, engaging in mindful stretching and breathing, has become a global habit practiced in studios, gyms, and homes. The reward, whether it's physical fitness, mental clarity, or a sense of community, has made yoga a widespread practice. Its rise as a social habit reflects a larger cultural shift toward health and wellness, where individuals are not only transforming their own habits but also shaping societal norms. As these examples show, habits can transcend the individual level and ripple through societies, becoming powerful forces for change. But how can individuals and organizations leverage this social aspect of habits to spread positive behaviors and create lasting change? The key lies in the ability to harness the power of social networks, the connections we have with others that influence our decisions, actions, and habits. In today's world, social media platforms and online communities have made it easier than ever to create and spread new habits. Social habits can be viral, passed along from one person to another as people share their experiences and inspire others to adopt similar routines. This phenomenon is evident in the rise of online fitness communities or health challenges that spread through platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Take, for example, the popularity of the hashtag FitFam or hashtag yoga community hashtags. These hashtags have helped to create global communities where individuals share their fitness journeys, support one another, and celebrate their progress. What began as individual acts of exercise have evolved into collective habits, with social media acting as the conduit for spreading these habits to millions of people. These shared habits not only encourage individual participation, but also create a sense of belonging and motivation that drives continued engagement. The cue is often a desire to get fit or live a healthier lifestyle. The routine involves daily exercise or mindfulness practices, and the reward is the sense of accomplishment and community. However, harnessing the power of social habits isn't limited to fitness or wellness. Social movements like environmental activism, for example, have used similar principles to foster collective behaviors that lead to societal change. Campaigns like hashtag Plastic Free July or initiatives like Meatless Mondays have successfully spread through social networks by leveraging shared habits to create broader cultural shifts. These campaigns work because they tap into existing networks and encourage individuals to adopt new habits that benefit both themselves and society. The key to these movements is the same principle that drives habit formation: cues, routines, and rewards. Organizations can also use this principle to create a positive, productive organizational culture. Companies like Google and Zappos have long understood the importance of fostering positive habits among their employees. These organizations have cultivated habits of collaboration, innovation, and customer service that have become ingrained in their company cultures. By making these behaviors part of the daily routine, through group activities, internal communications, and incentives, they have transformed individual actions into organizational habits that drive success. For leaders looking to create a similar culture, the key is to identify the cues that inspire positive behavior, design routines that reinforce desired actions, and offer rewards that motivate employees to continue those behaviors. Over time, these collective habits become the fabric of the organization, shaping its culture and driving its mission forward. So, what can you do as an individual or a leader to harness the power of social habits? The first step is recognizing that habits are not just individual behaviors, they're collective phenomena that can create momentum for social change. Whether it's through social media, community groups, or organizational initiatives, you have the ability to inspire and influence others to adopt new habits. By understanding the habit loop and focusing on the cues, routines, and rewards that drive behavior, you can contribute to creating a culture of positive, impactful habits. In the next chapter, we'll dive into how you can leverage habit stacking to further accelerate personal and collective change. Stay tuned for more strategies that will help you harness the power of habits to transform your life and the world around you. ####Chapter 7. Building a Life by Design. Mastering habits for success. Imagine waking up every day with a clear sense of purpose, knowing exactly what steps you need to take to move closer to your goals. This isn't just a fantasy. It's a life that can be designed through intentional habits. When you think about success, it often seems like something that's reserved for a select few, a group of extraordinary individuals who are somehow wired differently from the rest of us. But in reality, success is not just about talent or luck. It's about habit, the invisible thread that weaves together the daily actions that, over time, create the life we want. You've likely heard the saying, success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out. The habits we form, whether it's how we begin our day, the way we handle challenges, or the way we approach our work, are what ultimately shape our results. These habits don't just appear out of thin air. They are the product of deliberate design. If you're ready to start mastering your habits for success, It's time to think about how you can craft a habit framework that aligns with your personal and professional goals. The first step in building this framework is to define your goals clearly. Without clarity on what you're striving for, it's impossible to build habits that support those objectives. Whether you want to become a successful entrepreneur, a best-selling author, or a world-class athlete, your daily habits need to align with that vision. Once you have your goals in mind, break them down into actionable steps. This is where the magic happens, turning abstract dreams into concrete actions that you can build into your daily routines. For example, if your goal is to write a book, instead of waiting for the elusive burst of inspiration, you could design a habit that ensures you write a set number of words every day. Even if it's just 300 words a day, by the end of the month, that adds up to 9,000 words. In a year, you'll have a full manuscript. This daily habit, though small in the moment, will compound into something extraordinary. By focusing on these manageable actions, you take the pressure off yourself to be inspired, and instead focus on the process of showing up and doing the work. The key to mastering habits for success is consistency, and one powerful way to ensure this is by using the concept of habit stacking. Habit stacking is a technique where you take an existing habit, something you already do regularly, and stack a new habit on top of it. The beauty of habit stacking is that it doesn't require you to start from scratch. You can leverage your current routines to create new ones. For example, if you already have a habit of drinking a cup of coffee in the morning, you can stack a new habit on top of that by adding a 5-minute morning meditation or reading a chapter of a book. By stacking new habits on top of existing ones, you increase the likelihood of following through because the new habit becomes tied to an already established routine. In time, these stacked habits will form a strong foundation that propels you toward your goals. Consider the story of Jerry Seinfeld, the legendary comedian. He once shared a simple yet powerful habit he used to develop his writing routine. Every day, he would write a joke. The key to his success wasn't just the writing itself, but the habit of showing up and doing the work every single day. Seinfeld's goal was to get better at his craft, and he did this by committing to writing every day without fail. Over time, his daily writing habit compounded, resulting in a catalog of jokes and routines that would propel his career to new heights. His success wasn't a fluke. It was the result of consistent, intentional effort built on the foundation of a simple habit. Another remarkable example comes from Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time. Phelps didn't just rely on natural talent. He built his success on a foundation of deliberate habits. His daily routine involved countless hours of practice, strength training, and mental preparation. But the most impressive aspect of his habits was his unwavering commitment to the process. Phelps didn't focus on winning medals. He focused on perfecting his technique and putting in the work every single day. His habits were crafted with a clear vision in mind: to be the best swimmer in the world. The results followed naturally. These examples illustrate the power of consistent, focused habits in achieving extraordinary success. The common thread among these individuals is their commitment to mastering their habits and designing their lives with intention. But success doesn't always happen overnight. The journey is long, and there will be obstacles. There will be days when motivation is low, and the allure of instant gratification is strong. The key is to have the discipline to continue, even when it feels like progress is slow. Habits, by their very nature, are about consistency, not perfection. To help you on this journey, it's essential to build self-reflection into your habit framework. Regularly reflecting on your progress will keep you motivated and provide clarity on whether your current habits are aligned with your desired outcomes. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, but taking time to assess your habits and their impact can give you the insight you need to adjust your approach and stay on course. Reflection also involves visualizing the life you want to create. Take a moment to imagine your ideal future. What does success look like to you? What do your days look like when you've achieved your goals? This vision serves as the fuel for your habits. When you can see the bigger picture and connect your daily habits to that larger vision, it becomes easier to stay motivated and focused. You're no longer just going through the motions. You're actively creating the life you've always wanted. But remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to success. What works for one person may not work for another. It's up to you to experiment with different habits, tweak your routines, and see what works best for your unique goals. And as you evolve and grow, your habits will evolve with you. The beauty of designing your life with habits is that it's a dynamic process, one that allows for growth, change, and improvement over time. The journey to mastering habits for success may take time, but with each small step, you're building a foundation for lasting transformation. By crafting a framework of habits that are aligned with your goals, reflecting on your progress, and continuously refining your approach, you can create a life that is not only successful but fulfilling as well. The power is in your hands. Now it's up to you to design the life you've always dreamed of. In the final chapter, we'll explore how to overcome the inevitable obstacles that come with building new habits, and how to stay committed to the process even when things get tough. Stay with us as we dive into strategies for overcoming setbacks and creating lasting success. Chapter 8. Conclusion. Becoming the architect of your future. As we come to the close of our exploration into the profound power of habits, it's essential to take a moment to reflect on the journey we've just undertaken. We've unraveled the intricacies of habit loops, discovered the extraordinary impact of keystone habits, and learned how willpower, when properly cultivated, becomes the cornerstone of lasting change. We've explored how habits shape not just individuals but entire organizations and social movements, and we've seen that success is not a distant dream for a select few. It's something that can be built, step by step, through deliberate and intentional habits. This journey has shown us that our lives are a direct reflection of the habits we've formed. They dictate how we respond to challenges, how we interact with others, and how we approach our dreams. The message is clear. By mastering our habits, we become the architects of our own futures. We gain the power to design the life we want, one habit at a time. But the key insight that must resonate above all is that habits are not set in stone. They are fluid, malleable, and open to transformation. The ability to change is always within our reach, and with that power comes incredible responsibility. We don't need to wait for the right moment or a grand epiphany. We can begin reshaping our habits right now. The future is not something that just happens to us. It is something we create through the habits we choose to build today. Consider the story of Chris, a man who found himself at a crossroads in life. Overweight, unmotivated, and unsure of his next steps, Chris decided to take action. His breakthrough came not from a drastic change in one fell swoop, but through the subtle, consistent power of habit. One habit, a morning walk, was his gateway. First, it was just a small step, a brief 20-minute walk each morning, followed by the next and the next. Soon, he was walking longer distances, feeling the benefits physically and mentally. That single habit of walking each day soon led to other positive changes. He started eating healthier, drinking more water, and even finding the energy to pursue other passions that had long been dormant. Within a year, Chris had lost over 50 pounds, but more importantly, he had rediscovered his confidence and sense of purpose. His transformation wasn't a result of a drastic, overwhelming shift. It was the product of small, consistent changes, a direct consequence of understanding the science of habits and using that knowledge to his advantage. This story is just one of many that demonstrates the transformative potential of habit mastery. Whether it's someone overcoming addiction, a leader reshaping a team, or an entrepreneur designing a thriving business, the underlying principle remains the same. Change is possible, and it starts with habits. And the best part? The power to create this change lies within you. If you've made it this far, you've already gained a wealth of insight into how habits work, how they shape our lives, and how we can use them as tools for personal and professional transformation. Now, it's time to turn that knowledge into action. Small changes, repeated over time, lead to profound results. It's the law of compounding habits, a simple but powerful concept. The habits you cultivate today may seem small, even insignificant, but over time, they will have a profound impact on your life. So what can you do right now? You don't have to wait for a special moment or for all the conditions to align perfectly. The best time to start building better habits is right now. Ask yourself, what's one small habit you can introduce today that would bring you closer to your goals? Whether it's reading for 10 minutes each morning, drinking more water, or setting aside time each day to reflect on your progress. Take that first step. It may seem trivial at first, but as we've seen throughout this journey, consistency is key. Small actions will compound, creating the foundation for lasting change. But let's take this a step further. Don't just think about what you want to achieve. Think about why it matters. Your habits are not just the tools you use to reach a goal. They are the reflection of your deeper values and desires. When you're clear on your why, your habits will have a greater sense of purpose. You won't just be going through the motions. You'll be actively working toward the life you envision for yourself. The beauty of habits is that they are incredibly personal. There is no universal path to success, and no one else can define success for you. You are the architect of your own future, and the tools to build that future are right at your fingertips. The key is to approach your habits with intention. Each small change you make is a step toward the person you want to become. And as you continue on this journey, keep in mind that setbacks will come. Life is messy, and change is rarely linear. But the most successful individuals aren't those who never face obstacles. They are the ones who persist despite them. They stay committed to the process, knowing that every step counts. To close, I leave you with a final thought. The power to change your life lies in your hands, one habit at a time. It's within your control. Your future, your success, and your fulfillment are all shaped by the choices you make today. You have the ability to take charge of your habits and use them as a powerful tool to create the life you've always dreamed of. So what are you waiting for? Start now. The journey to mastering your habits and ultimately your future begins with a single intentional step. Remember, change is not only possible, it's inevitable if you choose to make it happen.